Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Jennifer Travis with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great session lined up for you. Before we begin, I would like to remind everybody that we are recording today's webinar and we will make it available later this evening on franchise.org. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please add them to the Q&A box and they will be addressed towards the end. Today's topic is handling resistance in the franchise awards process and is brought to us by the Entrepreneur Source. Here to provide today's discussion is Dana Vespris, Training and Coaching Specialist, and Eric Misbrenner, Director of Franchise Development. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to the Entrepreneur Source for sponsoring today's Lunch and Learn. I will go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everybody. I am Eric Misbrenner, Director of Franchise Development, and joining me today is Dana Vespris, CFE, Training and Coaching Specialist. And as Jennifer mentioned, we are representing the Entrepreneur Source today, and the topic we'll be discussing is handling resistance in the franchise awards process. So, first and foremost, I want to thank all of you who took the time out of your day to join us, and thank you to the IFA for having us. As I said today, Dana and I are here to discuss handling resistance in your franchise candidates and the approach that we take to it. First and foremost, for those that are unfamiliar with us, we are the anti-sales organization in franchising. We instead focus on education and coaching. We don't think that this should be treated like a used car lot. It's important to know that about us because our approach is in full alignment with our chief principles: educate, don't sell; award, don't close. So this presentation won't share any sales tricks of the trade, unfortunately, but rather a formula to help you uncover what is the source of resistance in any given situation, which can vary quite a bit from person to person. We've got quite a few slides here, so some of them we're going to be moving through fairly quickly. Others we'll slow down and talk through in more detail. So we'll go through the 5-step formula for handling resistance in the awards process. We'll also talk about how that pertains in the most common scenarios: family or partner concerns, when they're right there in the home stretch, 80 to 90% there, but just can't quite get to that finish line, and when that last minute job opportunity shows up in the last lap. So I'll kick it over to Dana and you can go ahead and get it started.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. And hello, everyone. So we're talking about resistance today. Franchise candidates are going to experience many emotions during this roller coaster of getting to know your brand, right? And they're also going to hear opinions from others. They could even still be considering a job or another opportunity. During this process, it's only natural that they're questioning if they are making the right decision for them. This questioning may come in the form of objections or what we call resistance. So your goal here is not to overcome objections or resistance. It's to guide understanding and help create clarity. Overcoming objections instead of creating clarity can cause dissatisfaction for both parties in the long run, right? The objective is to award franchises to the correct candidates, not just the ones who say they want to buy your franchise. So using this method will help you create a partnership that's built on mutual trust and dedication instead of just overcoming what you see as an objection. So no matter what type of resistance a candidate displays, there's a formula that you can use to help create clarity for your candidate. 5 simple steps. The first one is to listen without jumping in. Second is reflect and validate. Third is ask questions to explore the root. The fourth is reassure without pressure. And the fifth is respond with clarity. And I'm going to turn it back over to Eric, who's going to go deeper into each of these steps.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, let's take a closer look at these steps, folks. So the first one, arguably the most challenging for those of us in development: listening instead of talking, and not just listening to respond, but listening to truly understand what is at the heart of the matter. Seek to understand. Don't be defensive. Don't be salesy. Don't be aggressive. Be calm and be understanding. Next slide, Dana. Thank you. All right, no worries. Reflect and validate. So ensure that you truly get their concerns by restating them. Things can get lost in translation sometimes, right? So it sounds like you're wondering whether this is not the right time financially, right? This will ensure that the candidate, that they know that they're truly being heard. Okay, now it's time to dig deeper, right? Asking questions to explore the root issue. What would need to be true for you to feel confident moving forward? Is this a concern about risk, timing? Are the concerns warranted? Or is this just a defense mechanism that's kicking in? Understand that fear is a powerful emotion and it's at its peak right at this stage, right? This is where things are about to get real. So their concerns on the same time may be warranted. Understand also that not everybody is meant to be a business owner, but your main objective here is not necessarily to prove them wrong, but to find that pain point and talk through it. So the thing about fear that can paralyze some folks, especially at the finish line, is that it's totally normal, right? Especially for someone who's never owned a business before. I get more concerned when there's no fear at the stage, to be completely frank. So reassure without pressure. Let them know that this is okay. You know, most of your franchises, if not all of them, have gone through the same exact thing. This is beyond their comfort zone. This is human nature for people to stay with what's comfortable. And if business ownership was easy, we'd all own a business. So this is your golden opportunity to speak about training, support, any and all tools that your system has in place to assist your franchisees from struggling and or failing. Speak to those situations where others have had that same concern or fear and push past it successfully. Like I said, most of your franchisees, if not all of them, have gone through this. I have countless stories of people who ended up becoming some of our top performers in the system that froze at that finish line and started talking to friends and family and needed that support system in place to kind of push them through that last step. So let's look at how to apply this formula to those three scenarios that we mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Eric. We're going to start with family or partner concerns. And I'm sure this comes up a lot for a lot of you. When a franchise candidate is ready to move forward, but someone close to them, a spouse, a parent, a friend, an advisor, it could be anybody, their insurance agent, right? But somebody that they're close to in some way, shape, or form raises doubt, it's important to acknowledge that concern without making the other person wrong, right? So you can use this five-step model to guide the conversation with empathy and confidence. So let's take a look at what that might sound like. So first, listen without jumping in. So you're going to let the candidate express what the family member said without interruption. It could sound something like, sounds like this is really weighing on you. What exactly did they say that gave you pause, right? So you're going to start with understanding what was said. Then you're going to reflect and validate. So you're going to restate their concern to show that you understand and that it's also normal to get outside input, right? It makes sense that someone close to you would want to protect you. That's what people who care about us do. So it's very natural and it's common and it's something that shouldn't take the train off the tracks, right? Something you've encountered before. And then you're going to start to dig deeper and ask those questions to explore the root issue. And these are just three of a myriad of questions you could ask at this point. Do you think they fully understand the research and the validation you've done? Have they seen the same validation calls or reviewed the materials you have? Is their concern based on facts or just fear of the unknown? And then it's time to reassure them without pressure. Let the candidate know that hesitation is part of the process and that being thoughtful is actually a strength. These conversations can be hard, especially when someone close to you sees things differently. But this choice is about your future, and no one else has done the work you've done to get here. And there are times when it may just be as simple as your candidate not really taking the time to explain to their family or friends all the work they've done before making their decision. So sometimes it's just slowing down the train a little bit for those around them and letting them know that they really have been thoughtful and asked a lot of questions during this process. And then you're going to respond with clarity. So you really want to help them recenter around their original goals and remind them of the clarity they felt before any outside doubts crept in. So if you pause for a moment before that conversation, how did you feel about moving forward? Right? Remind them where they were before they had that come up. How will you feel 6 months from now if you don't give yourself the chance to move forward? And make them think about what their life might look like if they make an alternate decision. And a little pro tip for you, you can reframe the role of outside input. It may feel very, very important to them. Outside voices are important, sorry, but they often lack the full picture. So encourage the candidate to consider input, but also trust themselves in their own process, right? So you may say something to them like, you've done the homework, you've spoken to franchisees, asked the hard questions, and imagine yourself in this role. The choice ultimately belongs to you. Can you move forward without their support? And a reminder that just because they don't necessarily have their support right in this moment, it doesn't mean they won't regain that support later when their family or friends realize that they made a really good decision for themselves. And now I'm going to turn it back to Eric to talk about the 80 to 90% there.
The dreaded 80 to 90% there. Thank you, Dana. Yeah, so happens a lot, right, folks? They get right there, and it's just that last step is the hardest. And as much as we can educate and coach, that last step has to be their own. Here's the reality. The stars usually don't come into full alignment as they explore these franchise options, right? There's always going to be, at least to some degree, a leap of faith. The key objective in thoroughly exploring and learning is not to eliminate the leap altogether, but to make it as small as possible. We can make them no promises, nor should we, mainly because they're the pilot of the ship, right? They're the X factor that we don't know about. So as we have discussed today, that last 10%, it could be fear. It could be loved ones that are advising against proceeding, the people who don't know what they don't know. It could be natural risk aversion that we all have to varying degrees. But there's only one way to truly find out. Listen with intent. So how do those 5 steps pertain to the 80 to 90%? If you build trust and rapport with your client, you will get full or mostly full transparency in their answers. If not, you may need to do a little bit of translating. But don't be afraid to ask the tough questions, right? What's holding you back that other 10 to 20%, right? There's been something that they've been gravitating to this whole time. So it could just be that defense mechanism kicking in. So again, reflect and validate, right? Many people feel this way at this stage. Something new has a level of uncertainty. This is where their toes are right on the edge of their comfort zone. So again, restate their concern, let them know you understand their concerns, but also let them know that it's common. So these are just a few examples of questions that you can ask, right? What would help you get to 100% confidence? What helped you get this far in the process? What part of this feels like the right fit for you? And again, as Dana mentioned earlier, what would you do instead? What would this look like if you go in this direction versus going back to what you were dreading, right? What led you to start looking at these concepts in the first time? Basically, what can help them get to that point of full clarity? So for any of you that might know the term feel, felt, found, it kind of is very similar to what we're doing here, right? So again, reassuring without pressure. Let the candidate know that this is normal and that it's good that they're unturning all the rocks and asking the people that they need to support them, because it can be difficult for them if they don't get the support around them, or they don't feel confident going into it. You don't want somebody who's going to be dipping their toes in the water as they become a franchise owner for your brand. You want somebody that's going to jump in with both feet, feel confident in the support that you're going to offer, and know that they're not alone. So, saying that I hear what you're saying, and many people have felt this way, right? The feel, felt, found. Most people who do move forward do so at 90%. Again, stars aren't always going to get in perfect alignment. That leap of faith never fully disappears, because the last 10% won't come from us. It comes from you. That is that want. They have to want this. They have to want to be a business owner and have that flexibility, whatever their motivation is, work-life balance, right? Having that control over their fate. That want has to be strong. If not, that's going to be the internal battle that they're fighting inside. Which is going to win? Is it going to be the want, the need for a better life, or the fear that's going to overcome them? And responding with clarity. So again, go back to what led them to look at business ownership in the first place. Remember that you said, you were tired of these mass layoffs. You were tired of not being around for your son or your daughter's sporting events and to help them with homework. You were tired of being a road warrior and living out of suitcases in hotels in your previous career. Whether it's control of their own fate, that work-life balance, maybe being a part of something that they were truly passionate about. I don't know how many people I talk to on any given day that says, hey, Eric, I'll give you a little background on myself and my career. I studied for this, I got my degree, took this job as a stepping stone right out of college a couple of weeks later, and I've been here for the last 25 years. And they've never truly done anything that they've loved. But they've gone to 80 to 90% with your business model for a very specific reason or multiple reasons. And they've been gravitating closer to this opportunity for a while now. So know that there's a general 20-60-20 rule at play in franchising. You're going to have the top performers, you're going to have people who struggle, and you're going to have the majority of them floating somewhere in between, right? It's true that not every franchisee succeeds, and there's usually a reason, right? Have them talk to your franchisees in validation and ask them, what were some things that you did wrong early on? Almost every time they're going to say, I didn't follow the system. I tried to reinvent the wheel, got a little too creative, came back when the guardrails, things started falling into place, right? But if they try and reinvent the wheel, or they're scared to jump in with both feet, or they get ready and just dip those toes in the water, speak to the common reason that franchisees can struggle, or have your franchisees do that themselves in validation. Ask them what their experience has been in their career, right? If they've been a top performer throughout their career up until this point in time, why would anything change in this case, right? If they've never failed at anything that they went all in on, why would this be any different? And another pro tip. I don't know, have any of you ever felt like I know this happens to me all the time, that you can give others great advice, but when it's something that's close to home or something happened to you yourself, you struggle, right? You're not really sure, but it's so much easier to advise other people when you're not immersed in it. That's because emotions, fears, biases are more prevalent when it comes to yourself, right? So sometimes you can take them out of the equation by looking at things from the outside to provide clarity, right? If someone you really respect were in your shoes right now and you ask them what to do, what would you tell them, right? And let's see, back to you, Dana. Sorry, I didn't realize.
That's okay. Thank you, Eric. So our last scenario today is that last minute job interview or offer that can throw things right off the rails just when you think you were headed into the home stretch. So I'm sure some of you have had this where you've been working with someone for a while and you're getting close to awarding that franchise, and that last minute job interview or offer arises. So let's take a look at that scenario. So you really want to give them the opportunity to express what interests them about the new position without interrupting. Show empathy and remain calm, right? Don't panic that you're afraid that your process is about to take a change, or you're going to end up losing this candidate in this situation. So make sure you use that nice, calm, open body language. And you can say something like, thank you for sharing that. Tell me more about why this position interests you, and just let them talk about it. And you're going to ask them some questions around that after you reflect and validate. So you're going to restate their concern to show that you understand. So it sounds like you're considering this position for financial stability. It could be health insurance. It could be, a fear of the future. All of those things could be at play here. So you're going to reflect and validate that you understand where they're coming from. This, again, builds trust, and it doesn't make them wrong. Instead, it makes them feel seen and like they're not being sold to, which no one really enjoys. So then you're going to ask questions to explore the root issue. There are so many questions you could ask depending on the particular scenario. So I have quite the list of questions here that apply to this scenario. But basically what you're doing is trying to compare and contrast the opportunity that they're headed into with this possible job that has come up. So how important is autonomy and control over your time, income, and decisions? If you accept this job, how much freedom do you believe you'll have to shape your future? Where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now in each of these scenarios? If this job doesn't pan out or doesn't meet your expectations, will you wish you had moved forward with the franchise? Oftentimes that dream job is not actually a dream and sometimes turns into a little bit of a nightmare. When you imagine yourself waking up in the morning, do you feel more excited about building your own business or going into this job? Another version of that question is, will you be happier building someone else's dream or building your own? Right? Which path feels more energizing and in alignment with who you are right now? Are you more motivated by a paycheck or by building something of your own that could grow in value? If this job interview or offer hadn't come up, would you have still moved forward with the franchise? And what's causing the hesitation now? Fear of risk, fear of the unknown, or something else? So our next step, as you know, is to reassure without pressure. So you're going to normalize these concerns and reassure them. That may sound like saying a lot of the successful owners I've worked with decided that even though it felt riskier at the start, going into business for themselves provided them with what they've desired from their career. So you're not rushing again to close or to pitch them here. You're being calm, and calm is more powerful than persuasion in this instance. And then you're going to respond with clarity. Now that they feel heard, you're going to respond with context. So once a point of clarity is reached, the rest are really just detailed. So if they, through this conversation, come to that point of clarity that, yep, they want to move forward with your business, you're going to move right into getting them set up with those details. Now that we've clarified that your new business will meet your needs and desires better than this potential job, the next step in the process is to whatever, and you're going to give them the details they need to take those next steps in your process. Eric, do we have any questions that we should address at this point?
I see no questions.
Okay.
Always throw in another couple tips if you like. I know we have a few minutes left. So.
Sure. You want to throw out something, Eric?
Yeah. So just kind of looking at some of these, you know, I think that sometimes there's a false illusion in corporate America, right? People think it's safer there because they're getting a paycheck and they know when they're going to get that paycheck. They know how much that paycheck's going to be. Here's the reality. Where I challenge them is I'll ask them one question that seems to diffuse that. They always end up kind of silence, which is, okay, well, how long are you going to get that paycheck? If you're working for a company, and myself and Dana are corporate employees, we don't want to be hypocritical, right? We just have an amazing organization that we're a part of. But, you know, the reality is they could fire me today. There is always going to be somebody that holds your fate in their hands when you're working for a corporate job. So don't be afraid to challenge some of those things just from a different perspective, right? Friends and family, when they are, you know, being what we call crabs in a basket, right? Trying to pull them down. Oh, I know somebody who invested in a franchise and it didn't work well. Can you imagine if people said that for people that were just launching their own business? Oh, I knew somebody who started a business and it ended terribly. So what? How many successful businesses are there? How many thousands of successful franchise owners are across the country, right? So again, they don't know what they don't know, but a way that you can diffuse that preemptively is inviting them into these discussions, right? If you know that they have a risk-averse spouse or they've mentioned that to you, bring him or her into the discussion. There's a yin and a yang dynamic to every couple, right? So one might be the, you know, just jump in and make it work. And the other one could say, hold on, honey, did you ask him this? Did you ask him that? Right. So it's important every time you can to bring in as many parties of their network, their loved ones, their household. So just a couple tips on things that you can do to sometimes counter these and sometimes beat them to the punch before it becomes an issue.
Thank you, Eric. We did get one question come in. And so how many times should you try to change their mind without being annoying?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? You can only do so much. You can only speak to the tools and the support that your brand offers, right? Again, understand that not everybody's meant to this. There are people that could invest in a business, go back home and binge watch Netflix for 6 straight months. And they might do that if they're not being micromanaged, right? Not everybody does very well when there's not somebody looking over their shoulder and holding them accountable. So I don't think you want to necessarily change their mind or force the issue. And also know that, all you can do is the best is educate them on how you can support them and be successful. You can always send them back to more validation if they need to speak to more franchisees. That can help a lot sometimes. Maybe having them talk to somebody who struggled out of the gates and became a successful franchisee, cleared those hurdles, dealt with those obstacles initially. But there's also a chance that they're in round 8 of 10 and they are ready to go back. Maybe they haven't dealt with what we call battered career syndrome quite enough. And maybe that next job is going to be the one that makes them throw in the towel. So I think the key is go as far as you can in terms of education, in terms of showing them solutions, but don't push. Don't try to change their mind necessarily. They have to make this decision for themselves. Always remember that last 10% is up to them, and make sure that it's a good experience for them. Because if that next job is their last round, guess where they're probably going to come back? They're going to come back to you. They enjoyed your brand. They got excited about it. The fear just overcame it at that point. But that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
Awesome, Eric. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So, folks, for today, this is really just a reminder that you really can transform your franchise development with a process that honors and respects your candidates and concerns and doesn't sell but awards to them. And we know that when you bring in candidates that are in great alignment with your brand and haven't been sold to and have had been given clarity instead of overcoming objections, those people are going to be much better performers for you, right? So using this 5-step approach really can help you with that piece of your development. But we also know that sometimes new processes are easy to understand, but not so easy to implement. And we here at the Entrepreneur Source and our sister company, Zor Coach, are passionate about helping brands like yours grow and implement these best practices. So if there is anything that you would like more information on regarding implementing an award process, please reach out to me at the email address on your screen there. And we would be thrilled to talk to you about our Zor Coach program. And with that, I'd like to say thank you all so much for joining us today. It was our pleasure to present to you.
Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Dana and Eric. This was excellent content and excellent feedback from all of you, and we really do appreciate it. Again, this webinar was recorded and along with the presentation deck will appear on our website early this evening. You'll be able to find that at franchise.org. Thank you very much to our speakers and to the Entrepreneur Sources team. And thank you again for everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.